Gordon, we were talking about an interesting issue that was at the last episode of War, and that is, how do you deal with these conflicts where you are dealing with a consent authority or the consent authority and you have different views, or another arborist and you have a different view, and it's always difficult. You're probably like me, and I can see Martin sort of thinking about things here. I sit there and say, what's wrong with everyone? They're stupid. Does anyone else go through that process? And then I start to second guess myself and I say, maybe I'm the one that's stupid. So yeah, look, that was unfortunate that we didn't get it down, but we'll undoubtedly discuss the topic at some further stage, and we'll go through those issues again, so you've got a copy of it to listen back through. But
Mark, we have a new person, somebody we haven't seen before, Martin, who's
fighting.
Hi, Mark.
Yeah.
Nice to meet you.
So, Martin, would you care to just give us a bit of an idea of what it is that you're interested in, and what you're hoping to achieve?
Oh, I see. Thank you for that. Well, okay. Just let me introduce myself. I'm Martin Tuscher. I'm based in Czech Republic. I'm a kind of visionaire, inventor. I'm a businessman and president of an NGO. By my vision is basically use urban trees for climate change mitigation, which would bring a lot of jobs and money to the industry. Up to now, it's the urban forest is used mostly for climate change adaptation. So let's say we see that the cooling effect of urban trees is the most important, and there's no scientific link to why we plant trees in the cities. Everyone wants to just plant the trees. The scientific fact is that if the tree doesn't grow and the tree is not big, as you have a lot of big trees in Australia, then it basically doesn't provide almost no ecosystem services. So what I do, what's my mission, is to connect the scientific knowledge to daily business. From business-wise, I'm with my wife, among others, a dealer of tree gator bags in Czech Republic, Slovakia, and Poland. We were very successful in implementing this tool. But what we found out is that there's nothing to water big trees, which was not usual here, but we saw a lot of cases of stressed trees in the cities and even in green areas. So we invented a set of tools which consist of a method and special big bags to water big trees. And it's patent pending in Australia too. It's called TREEB or 3IB. Basically, it's an abbreviation of tree irrigation bag. And what I hoped for was to get someone on board, try the product and the method, or to just start a discussion about this in Australia, because it's first an unbelievable added value to a client, and the second, it's another source of business you can add to your service portfolio as a tree care company, independently to other services, but you have a customer base and you can manage a new revenue stream to a company or to the companies. Basically,
that's very interesting, Martin. Thank you very much for giving us that bit of an insight into what you're doing. And if anybody would like to get in touch with you, then, or you would like to get in touch with anyone here, then please feel free to do so via me. I'll be happy to pass on the contact details.
Thank you, Peter.
Martin,
Thanks,
were you
Mark.
in Albuquerque? Were you in
Beg your
Albuquerque?
pardon?
Were you in
Yes,
Albuquerque?
I was. I was a speaker in Albuquerque.
Yeah, I thought I recognized you. Yeah.
Nice
Yeah.
to meet you.
So yes, look, I think we'd all agree here that urban trees are important and unfortunately, sadly underrated. And it'll be interesting to see how that changes. But certainly, canopy loss is a big problem for us in Australia. I was not so long ago in Bad Weiss. Canopy renewal seems to be very good in the Czech Republic at the moment. You seem to be very good at planting more so than we are. So we're going backwards every time we develop.
Thank you for consideration. Basically, we calculated how many trees do you have to plant to replace one big tree, and it's a couple of thousands. I can definitely provide you a specific and very precise science on this. Well, okay, the vision we spoke with Peter about was basically to try to establish a kind of case in Australia with some of the private companies and to present it in New Zealand annual conference of ISA, which is 26, I believe. It's planned 26, yes.
25?
25 is Atlanta. I'm heading there, hopefully.
It's Atlanta this year, 24.
Atlanta this year.
I see. Okay. Yes, you're right. Thank you.
Yep. don't take a year from me. So yes, look, I think we as the global push towards sustainability rises, I think we'll see an increased need to start to think about how we see trees. And I've talked about that before. We need to start thinking about the health benefits. We need to think about the carbon sequestration. You take down a tree with a meter diameter trunk, you can't replace that with 5 trees of, a similar species that grow, because you're talking about, 40 years before they catch up, and that's too big a loss. So yes. Okay. So trees, insects, pests, and diseases that have been raised. Peter did send me. Only one person submitted something they wanted to have discussed, and I need to share my screen, which I will do. And let's see whether I can do this. It doesn't like me going down to the every other thing, so I should be able to see emails. There's Tree IB, so I've had a look at that. Where are we? Emails. Won't let me show you my emails. Why is it? Okay. Entire screen window. Yep, here we are. I have it now. So somebody sent this in as Mel from up near Taree, and it's not the best of image. I'm assuming you can all see it.
No, we can't see it.
Why is it not sharing with you?
Yeah, now we can.
Okay, you can now?
Yep.
Okay. Everyone see that?
Yep.
Not a great image, as I said. It's heavily pixelated, but we pretty well can all recognize it just by the posture and the pose of the insect. Anyone want to guess?
A praying mantis or a wasp or
Praying
something?
mantis. Yeah, praying mantis. So what do we know about a praying mantis? And we see them in trees. They're in trees quite regularly.
They're a good thing, aren't they?
Yeah, they're a good guy. Why?
They eat other insects.
They're insectivores. Yep. They eat each other too, just by the way. So that's probably not always good things. And they have an unusual seed case called an Ithaca or Ithaca. And let me just see if I can find one for you. Praying mantis. Yep. Okay. I have. So now it's just again figuring out how to share with you without going down the tunnel. And share. There we are. Okay. So it's this little foam looking thing here that is our Uthaka, and it's got lots of eggs in it, and the praying mantis hatch out of it as live. So they come out as adults, well, sorry, as nymphs. So they come out functional. They're not just staying there, so they've got to get out of there. And the primary role of the praying mantis is to capture and eat other insects. So good guys to have in a tree. There's another Ithaca that looks fairly similar, and that's that of the, and you'll have seen this at some stage or other, the cockroach. And some cockroaches carry them around, others of them leave them, and they've got this, you'll have seen them running around with the Oothica hanging out their rear. Like this. Yeah. Or you've seen these lying around your house. So if you see these are hard and crunchy. Probably the thing you want to harden crunch. Whereas on the other hand, this one is like styrofoam, like spray foam. So praying mantis, if you see something like this in a tree and you're doing a spray program, one of the things you want to be asking is, do I spray or do I let these come out and start doing the natural control? So that's the only disease that anyone submitted this month. Now, if I can then go to photos, stop presenting, and then start presenting. I've lined up a number of them, a number of the ones that I've been dealing with, so you can at least have the experience of my frustrations going out and being a consulting arborist. And we want to search, come on. Did not like that. That's better. And TIPS. Just marked a few up. Okay, the first one was a branch failure. You all see that nice and clear?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So we've got a branch failure. What do you observe and what don't you observe? So the question is, why did the branch fail? The first question.
Is there Kino on the inside?
There's some Kino, but that Kino can't get there except if there's already a void.
Yeah.
There's the discoloration on the top side of the limb.
Yeah, so there's some discoloration here. There's Kino's been put in there. Kino's a polyphenol. It's you know, it's stained up the area. There's been some staining from oxidation. You can see that here, and you can see here the tissue on this area where the cursor is wasn't connected. So there's been a crack here, a pre-existing crack, and yet I can see a little layer here of tissue that extends past. So, and if I look very carefully, let me zoom in, I can do it. There's actually a thin layer. You see the thin layer of tissue here that's live, the white bit?
Mm.
Is that visible on your screens?
Yeah,
Yes.
it is. Yep.
Yeah. And you can see here, there's almost like there's a layer of tissue here. So we've had a previous crack, a transverse crack, so a crack on the top side of the limb, and the tree's attempted to deal with it. And I've showed you images of that before, where the tree will attempt to produce a ply over the top. And here's the point that it failed from. So you can see it's got this nice big curved area, it's snapped off. So the tree has been attempting for some time to deal with this problem. And hence we've got this large amount of wound wood on the top side. And I'd say it's probably had several attempts at trying to occlude and deal with that and hasn't dealt with that. That's the failure from another point. But it just was worthwhile for me showing you that if I zoom in here, I see a similar little structure here, a little lump on the top side.
Hmm.
And that's something that you may want to think about if you're looking at a tree. It's not that that is a crack, but that is similar in terms of what we're looking at, particularly if it starts giving you a sort of a horseshoe type arrangement. In this case, I ignored it altogether because the branch has been reduced back significantly. There's more than enough prop tissue. Anatomical center of this, if we were to cut through with a saw, is about where my cursor is now. All of this is extra wood. Put down the bottom, prop tissue. So it's supporting it. It's if I were to say to you, put a bracket or put a shelf on the wall, how would you support that shelf? You would put tissue or a structure under the underside. You put a bracket in. This here, does anyone know what this is? We're seeing these lines, these creases. No,
I
that's
don't know. Is it stress from the weight of the limb?
yeah. Look, Vicky, that was one of the things that Maddock talked about. There's a thing called fiber buckling, something that in his newer encyclopedia he now calls fiber kinking. He says, look, if there's a lot of weight, you can end up having the fibers essentially compress and kink. This is not. This is common in a tree. And so you'll read reports by some arborists that were trained about a decade or so ago, particularly when the newer version, the older version of Maddox stuff was around, and this would be called fiber buckling. And this is not. This is congestion. This is simply as cells grow from here and cells grow from here, the curve eventually ends up bits meeting, and so you get congestion. Same thing happens, interestingly, on the top side because there's a curve. Okay. Anywhere there's a curve, you're going to find that as tissue divides, you're going to get some congestion of the tissue. Does that make sense to everybody?
Is it most species the same, or is particularly more prominent on these species?
It's more prominent on fast-growing smooth bark trees, so it looks more obvious on them.
Yeah.
Very rarely will you get fiber buckling. And I was talking about this, someone was asking me the other day. I will go to it and then I'll come back. I'll go. I have one tree only that I think we had fiber buckling. I'm pretty sure I've got it tagged in the live. Yeah, I have. So here we're getting a lot of this, like, you know, an elephant's trunk type effect here on the bottom side of this limb. This limb was heavily overweighted and the prop tissue would normally have come more straight. Here it's been pushed off to the side, and the council picked it up and said, yep, we need to do something about that, and they've lightened the limb. But you can see here, this is not very good for support when I've got a bracket and it's off to one side and it's bowing. So that bracket would fail. That's the only one I know of, and it wasn't one the council spotted it long before I did. It's the only one I have in my collection that I think meets the description of fiber buckling. So This is another interesting one, and it's one that has been a discussion point for arborists for ages. But a principal in the school said, look, I'm awfully concerned about this overlong, overextended branch. Has anyone ever had a client talk about that?
Yep.
Yep. Yeah, okay. In this case, it's pretty easy. If you wanted to deal with it, you could make a cut about here, remove that section through there, let it fill back in, and you reduce the load on that. What's interesting is there was a paper released last year, and that paper talks about the impact of 3 features in trees that we talk about resulting in increased limb failure. Overextended branches is one, clustering of branches is the second, and tight unions is the third. And the research of Brian Kane and others found that there was no significant increase in failure of either of those or any of those 3 structures during cyclonic winds. So what does that tell you?
Leave it alone.
Leave it alone, Vicky. You got it. The tree is dealing with it. There may be, and Frank Rinn does a great talk that you can download and look at on YouTube about torsional failures. So if you're talking about liquid amber, where that comes out and then goes up strongly, where it goes up strongly, that's loaded in torsion, and it may result in an increase in failure. But again, conditions when that's going to fail is not going to be conditions generally when people are outside. So,
Mark, what was that paper you just said last year?
I'll pull it up for you. I'll give you the exact paper name, and I'll probably send it to Peter now so that when you ask him for it, he's got it. Sorry, my risk folder is a large folder. Factors. I think it's called different or defect. Defective or just different, predicting storm failure in 4 urban tree growth patterns. And if you want to copy that, you can just download it. It's available, I'm pretty sure. I mean, I gained access through ResearchGate, so some of you may not have access there, but you should have a ResearchGate account if you don't, and it's free. So defective or just different, predicting storm failure in 4 urban tree growth patterns. And sorry, and I said Brian Kane, it's not, it was Andrew Kosa as the lead author. Oh yeah, Brian Kane as well. There we are. Well, I'm not going crazy. So Peter, I'll send that to you straight away.
Thanks, Mark.
And always in that attach files. No, I'll send it to them rather than.
Very interesting what you're saying there, because all my 20, 30 years, everyone's always overextended. Bring it back.
Yeah, look, and overextend it and reduce it, I can tolerate. Overextend it and remove it just drives me to the point of wanting to beat people up with it. And that's because if you remove it, you've now altered the whole dynamics of the tree.
Yep.
And the perfect reduction cut for this, what I said, is the easiest one is here. The ideal one's here and here.
Yep.
And here. And that is hard work climbing. And arborists are smart and lazy. So they tend to be inclined to make quick, lazy cuts. If that was my tree, I would leave it and say, look, if somebody's outside during conditions where that's going to fail, we've got a problem. The one exception to that, of course, is we've just looked at is what happens if it's partially failed during a wind and is just sitting there waiting. What do you think about that?
Still reduce it.
You could absolutely, you could still reduce it, and then that would remove the problem, which is why reduction is something that you sort of sit there and say, well, I'm not going to say no to it. But good reduction is made with lots of smaller cuts out here, not back here ideally. For a starter, it doesn't alter the aerodynamics as much. Secondly, we get a less loss of canopy, and canopy allows the tree to produce the energy it needs to deal with issues like tapering. And this is a limb, as I look at it, it's got relatively good taper to it. You know, people say to me, oh, that limb's got no taper. But if you look at it, it's actually quite a big amount of taper. There's not a lot between here and here, or there and there, but there's still enough. So I would just leave it. And it's nice that now we finally have a paper that supports what we've been saying. You know, it's not that unusual to think about. How about something like this? What do you think that is?
I think it came up on your screen what it is.
Yeah, that's great. Exactly does. It's a eucalyptus tip bug. So whilst it might look predatory, the occurs on eucalyptus. This has got a big proboscis, and that's just because it's going to move around a fair bit. And it's, again, one of those sugar-feeding hemiptera. So pretty neat little creature. And horrible as that is, that's my first picture of it scanned from a slide, and that was in 1980. So how often do I see it around? About every 4 or 5 years, you'll come across it, or I'd come across it. It's not an everyday thing. And this is the net result of it. Whilst they're feeding on the tips, you can see the tips are wilting and then dying.
Mm.
So you'll notice it more on small trees. So if you're out looking at smaller ukes, by smaller, young trees, you know, 5, 10-year-old trees. Once you get it onto bigger trees, it's irrelevant. The only time you'll see it is when you put it through the chipper and you dislodge things, and you'll see those insects.
I've seen them in Victoria, Mark, on Gonier calyx.
Yeah. As I said, on big trees, they're nothingness. I've never seen them at plague proportions. On smaller trees, you won't see them at plague proportions, but you will see the impact more, because they can go through in a matter of a few weeks and do quite a few tips, and do some damage. This was an interesting one that I just picked up in Golgong in New South Wales. What's happened here?
I don't know. Looks like the tips are eaten. But
Yeah, there is some stress in the tip here, and looks like it's eaten or dying back. But notice the color change here and here.
oh, it's the one tree.
It's the one tree.
Oh wow, yeah.
This is reversion. This is Cupressus sempervirens stricta Swain's golden, and this is Cupressus sempervirens stricta.
Yeah, wow.
And the Swain's golden is doing better in health, and there's a good reason why it's doing better. Anyone want to guess?
Water, rain.
It's to do with water. Yeah, it's interesting. It's to do with water. What about the aureate foliage gives aureate foliage an advantage? It's got a disadvantage. The disadvantage is it doesn't produce as much carbohydrates because there's not as much chlorophyll. Same with our purple leaf trees. Our purple leaf trees do not photosynthesize. Effectively, they're slower growing, not as slower growing as aureates or variegateds. So the loss of chlorophyll is one part of it. If there's a loss of chlorophyll, what are they not doing as much?
Is it respiring or?
Yeah, they're not using as much water. They're not doing as much photosynthesis, therefore they don't need as much water. And there's a young Italian arborist who's done some really good work at looking at these issues. One of Professor Farini's things, I'm horrible, I think it's Aliesco is his first name. Can't think of his surname. But he's looked at this very issue of, what trees, and so trees with these altered amounts of photosynthetic activity use less water. They're more water stress tolerant trees. So that's something that we might want to think about as we start thinking about what we're going to be planting. Okay, another one for you. Roots sitting out of the ground, what do you think? Has the tree shifted?
A high water table or compacted soil. But compacted soil is not usually in the park or whatever.
Yeah, this is in a bushland setting, but there's definitely a void. The tree has rotated. It's definitely lifted out of the soil a bit, and then it stopped. So again, we see these things and we say, oh, the tree has moved in the ground. But we need to know more than just the tree has moved. What were the conditions when the tree moved, and how likely are they to occur? How likely is it the tree to move further? And again, we would normally not keep something like this in an urban area, but in a rural area or an open space area, we do keep trees like that, and they give us information that we need to think about.
Those roots would have been developing over many years, like
Yeah,
that. Yeah.
yeah. This is another one that somebody sent me to show. This is erosion on a riverbank, and does the root system look like what you think it would look like?
No. Yeah, wow.
So again, it's not that all trees form like that. It's just we need to start interpreting information when that time comes. Would you consider that excessive pruning?
Just a bit. Yep.
Yes.
Will the tree survive?
Yes.
Yeah, well, it's a phoenix. It's got lots of storage in the trunk, lots of what we call parenchyma or live cells. So it's got huge amounts of storage, and it will produce a new crown. Not that long ago, this was that height, just cut straight off the top. Done for dubious reasons, but again, client called absolutely concerned that the palm was not going to survive. And it was easy to be able to say, yes, it will survive, and no, it's not going to have any major issues. This is a stump of a tree in a school. The tree was cut down in part because it was hollow. You can see how horrible that is, can't you? How would you describe that? What can you see?
Well, it just looks dead, but I don't know what the gap is in the trunk.
Let me see if I can rotate that for you. That'll make it easier. There we are.
The trees tried to compensate for that hollow and asymmetrical to put on more wood around there, around the void.
It has. It's put more wood here and here. That was the trunk there. There was another limb there at some stage or other, or that might just all be wound wood, but you can see here the wound wood coming out, and the wound wood coming out. The sapwood present at the time of injury has all decayed away. The tree's occluded it. There's what we call the callus flare here, and then it's just gone back into being like a normal tree. Did that need to come down? The answer is probably not. But again, there's a whole pile of people out there that are really risk averse. We've talked about this. I know we've talked about this is a cytoroxylin. and the issue of cytoxylin decline. And a lot of us noted that cytoxylin were declining quite rapidly after the big long wet, and now we're seeing the opposite. What do you do here? Would you say the tree's stressed?
Yeah.
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 Yep.
Definitely stressed. Yeah.
What would you do? What could you do?
You could mulch around, remove the grass and mulch.
Remove the mulch and grass. Remove the grass and mulch is a great idea. Yep.
I would
So
water it.
Sorry.
I would
Water?
water it.
Martin, this is one of those that go back the other way. Water is the problem for this one. It got too much water.
I see. Okay.
So it's a wait and see. So it's a species that oddly did not like getting saturated soils on a regular basis. But now Martin's right in the sense that if we get a long dry period, we will need to water it. And that seems almost counterintuitive. What we need to do is not water it heavily. We need to make up for the loss that we're getting in terms of things. So sit and wait is what we're saying with people with cytoxylins that are looking like that in Sydney at the moment. Those of you in other states, of course, won't have seen that in any way, shape or form. How about this? I saw this under a tree. Looks like variegation, doesn't it?
It does.
It does. Now, if I said to you the tree was looking like that. Let's wait for the image to come in cleaner. It looks like it's almost variegated as well. And that's eucalyptus. Can you see all the little nodes here? This is sublethal toxicity from herbicide damage.
Wow.
This is sublethal. So this is one of the sublethal symptoms. Okay. Distorted tissue, variegated tissue, pale tissue, so loss of chlorophyll, all are symptoms of sublethal herbicide damage.
Are you saying that's direct or indirect?
Direct. So sublethal means that it was applied at a dosage rate that was not lethal.
So deliberate poisoning, you're saying?
Oh, I didn't make any comment on that. Yeah, if I was guessing, the neighbor has a swimming pool, I'm guessing it would be deliberate. But I'm guessing, I don't know. Okay. And so it's one of those things that oftentimes people misapply herbicides unintentionally as well. And I've had it happen where somebody's come to me and said, look, what's wrong with my tree? And I've got there and I can think of one, it was a jacaranda. And I said, it looks like herbicide damage. And with a discussion with them, they revealed that they had washed out their Roundup container after spraying with about a quarter of the bottle left around the grass at the base of the tree. And I said, well, there's your source of the damage. And they had not realized that that could have happened. And one of the herbicides we have real problems with herbicides such as dicamba or broadleaf selective herbicides. And people use it to control bindii and khaki weed in yards. They apply it in November. It's just a wonderful money earner for us because they'll apply it during some hot weather. It'll rain a day or two after it's been put on, and then all of a sudden we start seeing leaves dropping off, trees thinning out, those sort of problems. And that's not uncommon. Now,
Mark, sorry, Mark, I've got a Fraxinus in Melbourne, a street tree that's doing this similar thing. It's like clusters of epicormic growth all through the canopy. but back from the tips of the branches. Do you think that would be poisoning as well? Or?
Yeah, that's the first thing I'd look at. That and mites. Mites
Yeah, okay.
can cause a similar problem. Now, remember we talked about mites before. Because they're very small, the ideal way to do that is just a little USB video camera, leave it on a cluster of buds for 2 or 3 minutes, and if it's mites, you'll see them. You'll see them running everywhere.
Yeah.
So the other thing that I've been struggling with of late is dealing with cavities. A lot of the schools that I've been going to have cavities in their trees, lovely big cavities. So I'll start. This is the one school. You can see that's obviously a good sized cavity. What do you do? This is a massive cavity. In a school, okay, it's in a lower use area. I get that. But what do we do when they get into other areas? This is the cavity formation. You can see here bird damage. So the birds are going in and cleaning out and making the cavities larger. 2 big cavities up here in the tree. Ignore the basal wound. It's got good adaptive growth, so don't have to worry about that. That could be a little bit intimidating. And I guess the question I have is, how often do you see a cavity fail?
Yeah, it's quite rare.
Yeah, this here now, I've got some good adaptive growth going on. I've got some good wound wood. And of course, the birds are coming out. They don't want it to occlude over. It would do if the birds weren't there. So they trim around the outside edge. A horrible process. So I've been thinking about this, and this school was great because I came around for the first time and as I'm zipping through the photographs, so I can get to the one that I want. 2 things. I'll use this one. This is a good illustration. 2 cavities here. Oddly enough, I suggested cutting the dead branch here off 30 centimeters long. Why?
The birds with perch.
Yeah, leave a perch. I'm not going to try and fight them. Let's leave it. And then this one here, because it's on the underside, there's some prop tissue being put down, but I suggested some reduction pruning. And the ideal cut is probably 1 cut about there. And so that's achievable on a tree of this sort of size. But what was exciting about this school is I got my first cavity failure. Now, don't know when in the sequence it failed, but that's it there. There's the cavity.
Yeah, wow.
And it failed. Let me see if I can improve that lighting for you. And so I got to think about it. And the thought I had is I probably see about 3 cavities minimum on average to school. There's about 3,000 schools in New South Wales. That's about 9,000 cavities. It's 11 years since 11 visiting years since Bridget died. That's a lot of trees for no serious injuries and no serious problems, isn't it?
Yep.
Now, this may have died, but let's assume that it didn't. Let's assume there was a failure at this point. Why did it fail? The answer is this is very thin, or would have been very thin at the time of failure. That is, that's only probably 20 centimeters across. The thicker the diameter of the trunk, the less likely failure is to occur. And I think we've talked about that before. So again, a great example of there it is there from that side. And my recommendation was nice and simple. If you are really concerned about it, here it is again. That would be a cut there. That's not the greatest structure to have a limb like that, but there are limbs like that all over the place from earlier days when people topped or lopped trees. And they're not the ones that are failing. The ones that are failing are the ones that grow back rapidly. Happy with that, guys?
Yep.
So, yeah, and again, I encourage you to do the same. Go around when you're looking at trees and you see a cavity and you're thinking, wow, and just find a cavity after a storm that's failed. They're not commonplace. So then why do we record them down? Anyone?
Maybe because the client can see them and they're worried.
Yeah, because for years we've gone around and we've used this word defect about the tree. We've said the tree's got a defect. We talked earlier on the work that Andrew and Brian have just done in terms of tight stems. There's a tight union. Oh, it's codominant. I can tell you in the early days, I braced trees like this to deal with that. Nowadays, I would just ignore that. It's got a nice stub nose, nice and rounded, cracks not generating, and the current research from Duncan Slater shows us that that's a good union. It's just different. Well, we get this want to say it's bad. Like stumps of trees that have failed, because you can interpret lots of things. This had 2 stems on it, again, codominant. There's been an injury. You can see here there's the wound wood going back over. This is where a callus flare comes out. It's finally got to an end. And this here is just as strong as if that was solid all the way through. So again, why was the tree removed? Who knows? But I suspect that risk was the most common excuse given. What's happening here?
I don't know.
Can you see that? Is that clear enough?
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is coniferous flowering and fruiting. So there are a whole pile of plants that produce flower and fruit on the bark, on the stems. So that it's not always at the end. So this is normal growth. That was Jaboticarpa. I can't think of its Latin. Ficus sur is another one that does it. Things that flower.
Muriae.
Yeah, Syzygium. So lots of things do that. Okay, this guy here, nice and simple, and we'll finish on this one.
Is it longicorn?
That's a longicorn larvae. How do I know that it's a longicorn larvae? And what's the difference between that and a jewel beetle larvae?
Is it the mouth?
But
species?
it's the head shape, and I wouldn't try and do it from that head shape. But that is not flattened here, top and bottom. So let me show you the difference between the two. The problem is young larvae, jewel beetle, might be under press today, we'll see. Okay, jewel beetle. This is close up, so this is only about 4 millimeters or 5 millimeters across. Can you see how this is slightly flattened on the bottom side?
Yep.
This is the exit hole of a jewel beetle. It doesn't matter whether you're talking about the Asian jewel beetle in America that's going through emerald ash borer. It's got that flattened shape. And it's hard to see when you're looking at it. It looks just oval. You've really got to look carefully to see the flattening. You see the flattening. And that's because this hole is dug with a head and mandibles coming forward. So it's like an ectograph. It's got to follow a pattern. Jewel beetle, when they produce frass, produce these crescentric circles. That's a young larvae. So you can see the crescent shaped here. And that's again because of their feeding habit. And I'm going to have to put, oh no, there we are. Again, this crescent shaped damage is frequently what you see amongst jewel beetle frass as opposed to longicorn frass. Jewel beetles, very skinny and flattened head. I apologize for the quality of those. Let me find a couple that are better. And of course, okay. Not perfectly in focus, I apologize. Jewel beetle flattened, longicorn more rounded. And it's that flattened component that makes the bottom have to come out flat. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
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 I'm not sure that may be wood moth on the right hand side. But that's definitely jewel beetle there, the flattened plate, and the body segments are very skinny and that's and often irregular in distribution, and that's a maggot, that's a fly. And yes, there are flies that bore as well, and we found all of those on the one tree.
Mm.
So there's a tree that was on its way up. You can see how these segments are quite irregular. Jewel beetle, longicorn larvae are more combined together. And jewel beetle usually only attack trees, our most common ones, that are on the way out. So it's see the D-shaped holes, or see pull off the bark and see the frass. How do you guys go about pulling off your bark? Does anyone ever do that?
Sometimes, yeah.
Yeah, I use a silly little thing called a hori knife.
Oh, you've got one of those.
Yeah, just awesome. Or a soil knife, they're called both. Hori knife. I'll just show you what they look like. They're available. They're relatively inexpensive. Look basically like this little thing here. Come on, open up. A sharp stainless steel blade, serrated on one side, sharp on the other side, although they never sell them too sharp. You've got to sharpen them. And they're really good for just prying and levering. So if I see an area where there's bark and I want to know more, I pull out my soil knife and just give it a pry off. Useful diagnostic tool. You can pick them up. That's $71. You can pick them up cheaper than that. Typically from about $30 or $40 upwards. There's some made in America that are really good, and some made in Japan. That are excellent. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, worthwhile tool to have, guys. I carry it on my in my car, and if I'm doing multiple inspections, I like a school, I carried it. I wear a standard tool belt with a set of braces because I'm fat. My hips aren't as big and my bum's not as big as it needs to be. So it wants to fall down. So braces on it, and I carry, a soil knife, a long screwdriver that I use as a probe at the same time, a loop, a chisel, a mallet, a sounding mallet, and then I've just got all the gear there when I need it. If I need it. So if I'm walking and looking at, 40 or 50 or 100 trees, that comes out with me. Every now and again, someone gets upset. I did a little while ago a Jewish school in Sydney, and the security guard gave me a very big talking to with his fully automatic weapon about how I must not get my soil knife out of its holster. And I said to him, I only get it out if I need to use it on the soil or on the plant material. It'll stay there otherwise. Having said that, very badly, I recently had one in school, and I've gone and put it in my holster and not felt to make sure it was, and I've lost it in a school playground. So I dread the thought of the implications of that if young Johnny is a psychopath and he picks it up. So, look, the plans for this year, to keep on looking at topical things as far as possible, because it's the ideal way to do it. So keep your eyes open for things that you want to discuss.
Yeah.
I'm more than happy to share you what I see when I'm out there. Just that last bit with the longicorn, that particular longicorn is a phloem feeding longicorn, so it feeds in the phloem and just scrapes on the surface of the xylem, and that's one of the Phoracantha species. There's 4 or 5 that'll attack stress trees. And I saw one photograph there where there was bark all over the ground. That was in fact the result of the drought affecting Eucalyptus microcories, and the Longicorn, just as they got to the stress point, would come in thousands and strip those trees. And the cockatoos, of course, eat the larvae. So you'll see often bird damage come in secondary to the borer. When you see Longicorn, the problem can still be reversible. So it's worthwhile putting the effort in. If you're seeing Buprestidae, usually at that point, you've lost the battle.